We're live. We're back. Hi, everybody. I'm Drew. Ow! Good evening. I'm Drew Magary. This is a live reading with Point B. Uh, I'm going to treat this like I'm at a bookstore doing a reading and a signing, and it's going to be totally weird because all of you are out there, and I can't hear you, and I can't see you. I can only see me looking back at myself, looking like a total fucking pud. So it's very exciting. I'm going to tell you about Point B. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read to you. I'm going to tell you about Point B for a second. I'm going to read to you. And then I'm going to answer all your questions same way I would at a book signing. And what happens at book signings, people ask about. In the past, they asked about Deadspin. They might ask about Deadspin a little more for other reasons. GQ, other books, random fun bag questions. I don't give a shit. Well, where are we going to go? We got nowhere to go. So let's sit back and enjoy. Pour yourself a snifter of brandy. I myself have a pint of straight Polish vodka, just pure vodka. Oh. I'll clear out your sinuses. Point B. I was 2 chapters away from finishing the first draft of Point B in December of 2018. On December 5th of that year, I hosted the Deadspin Awards and was stricken by a massive brain hemorrhage that left me half deaf and rendered me sensory disabled in other ways that I'll tell you about some other time. I was in a coma for 2 weeks, and I was in Mount Sinai Hospital, now famous Mount Sinai Hospital, for a month before I finally got out January 8th of 2019 and got home and was able to convalesce, especially thanks to everyone at Deadspin, particularly Megan Greenwell. And then I was able to get up onto my feet again and finish Point B triumphantly. I said, yes, I came back from the dead and finished this novel. Sent it to a bunch of publishers and heard crickets. Nothing at all. And I was disappointed. I loved the book. And I thought, I thought author things. I thought, well, they'll make $1 million and be turned into a movie. And that movie will win 36 Oscars and make $1 billion. And then I can fuck off to Fiji for the rest of my life. That didn't happen yet. We did get an agreement with a Hollywood production studio to develop the book for TV and movies. Went back to the publishers and said, hey, what about this? And this still didn't give a shit. So I said, okay, I'll do it live and I'll self-publish it. And the janky results of that self-publishing process, that education I've gone through in self-publishing, is now bearing fruit in the fact that you can't quite get a paperback yet, although I'm working on that. And it took me 5 minutes tonight to figure out how to turn the live stream on. So that's all been very fun. It feels like a true media mogul now. Let me read you one chapter from Point B, and then I will take your questions. You ready? Am I ready? The Academy building. Anna cursed herself for being stuck on a video call with her mom as Laura rushed off for assembly without her. By the time she managed to disengage herself from Sandy and race to the Academy building, the orchestra section of the assembly hall was already packed with new arrivals, with Laura sitting in the dead center and wreathed by girls who either wanted to be her friend or perhaps already were. Anna prowled along the rows of seats, all upholstered in deep maroon. The fabric is threadbare and scratchy as burlap. Looked for an open spot and hoping to catch Laura's eye. After a few awful seconds, Laura spotted her deserted roommate and smiled at her. Laura's smile had a way of wiping away any trace of angst or misery. Seeing her was like arriving home after a long time away. Anna! Anna gave a weak wave, her new bracelet jangling around her arm, and silently mouthed it. Laura picked up her jean vest, which she had left next to her, and patted the open spot. But there were a good 2 dozen students in the row blocking the way. A gauntlet of turned heads and boys spreading their legs across hemispheres. Anna couldn't find the courage to blaze a trail through all that. Not on her first day, but God, she wanted to. Anna had known Laura for barely an hour, and already the sight of her was making her body feed blood to other parts of her body. It's okay, she said to Laura. Laura looked disappointed. Really? Anna nodded. And Laura gave her a fluttering wave before the row condensed and the saved seat disappeared. The entire orchestra section now full. Anna had lost this round of musical chairs. Laura had all the friends. Laura had everyone. She was the sun. What was that like? What was it like to be able to choose your friends? That had never been a luxury for Anna. She wasn't a dork. She wasn't an outcast. She just never registered with other kids. She had her small pursuits, and she had diving, and she had Sarah. But she lacked the motivation and the precious teenage confidence to venture much farther beyond that. She took whatever friends life gave her, and life was stingy with them. Who knew how long Laura would treat her as a special friend, perhaps as more, before picking out a new muse from hundreds of willing candidates. Anna stood in place in the filling assembly hall for nearly a minute, feeling like a hired usher. Then she felt a hand on her shoulder and turned around to see a boy who was easily 6'4". He looked like he could scrape the ceiling. He was dressed in a yellow suit, festooned with bluebirds, and he had a wild, craggly beard. He smelled like meat. Anna was so stunned by the sight of him that she didn't even think to recoil. The balcony, he told her in a low drawl. What? The balcony looks closed, because no one's sitting up there. But it's not closed. Now isn't that just a little bit of sunshine on your doorstep? Everyone rushing in just so they can claim the worst seats. He walked through the entryway toward the grand staircase and beckoned to Anna. Come on now. Someone else will figure out the secret eventually. Anna followed the big yellow suit out of the entryway and up the stairs. He led her down to the front row overlooking the orchestra section. The perch was their domain exclusively. Everyone stared up at them. Well, at him. Anna spotted Laura. Laura winked at her. And there went all that blood rushing everywhere again. You're blushing, said the boy. I'm hot, Anna said. There's no air conditioning in here. This was true. The assembly hall had all the ventilation of a satin casket. Its ceiling went to the sky. That did nothing for airflow. The walls around the kids were lined with immense oil portraits of every dean in Druskin history, a succession of sour, humorless men and women, all frowning, all gazing upon the hall, with stoic disapproval. Air conditioning is for the weak, the very large boy said. He pointed to a name tag that read J. Paul Bamert, and then extended his hand. Sorry, I never formally introduced myself. I'm Bamert. Is that what everyone calls you? People have a lot of different names for me, most of them unkind. But you do kind of stick out. If you're going to stick out, don't half-ass it. That's what I say. Bamert drew a pocket square from his jacket and mopped his brow. And your name? I see you were too cool for a name tag. I'm Anna Huff. He shook her hand. How are you today, Anna Huff? Christ, I don't know. Bamert laughed loud enough for everyone down below to crane their necks again. Anna was beginning to regret being within a 10-foot radius of him. It was like sitting next to a lit Roman candle. That sounds about accurate for here. What's your dorm? He asked her. Sewell. Oh, Sewell. Sewell is a true shithole. It's a lot of stairs. Well, that's good. Stairs every day is leg day. Slap his beefy thigh. I'm only on the second floor of Kirkland. It'll do nothing for these quads. Bamert? Yes? You always like this? Only when I'm awake. Now, why was Lara Kirsch waving at you? Oh, Lara Kirsch? Anna asked him. Everyone knows Lara Kirsch, he said, pantomiming a bong hit. She's the princess of Portland. More important is that she seems to know you. She's my roommate. She's your roommate? My goodness. Shh. She's a dash of pepper, that one. She give you that bracelet? It's a winning little accessory. Anna rubbed the bangle nervously. Maybe. Did Lara's mom port into Sewer Hall too? Did you meet Amelia Dearest? Yeah. How'd you know she could do that? Bamert snorted. She built the wall. Stands to reason she'd be free to walk right through it. I bet I could find out her password, Anna said. She probably didn't just write it on the inside of her palm, you know. That's true. But if the key exists, that means it can be found. Why are you so bold, Anna Huff? What's your deal, Bamert? Why do you look like you're 30? He stroked his whiskers. I'm gifted in the follicle department. Also, I'm a new senior, as in senior citizen. He grinned. Isn't that so fiendishly clever of you? Are you a postgrad? You howled with laughter. I assure you, if I already graduated from high school, this would be the last place I'd hang. I'm just a regular senior. I'm also a physicist, or at least I will be. Normally, I just apply what I know to the science of barbecue. I do know a thing or two about porting. You know exactly how it works? Okay, I don't know quite that much. Ports keeps the recipe locked down tight, but you and I, Anna Huff, maybe we could collaborate. I am an open source gentleman. Happy to tell you everything I know about this port life. Will it take long to explain? Oh, I'm sorry, you did, man. Were you going somewhere more important? Did you have an appointment at the Vatican? Anna smiled. I don't. I guess it would be cool to work together. This is a very promising development, Anna, because once we know how Kirsch beats the heart in his wall, Dean Vick stood up on stage and cleared his throat into the microphone. Bamert finished with a whisper that could still be heard from Ontario. Maybe we can figure out how to beat it too. He opened his suit coat to reveal a pocket flask. I would have a pocket flask on me, but I don't have a pocket flask. Until then, this is the only teleportation device that will work for us. Well, the only person who didn't smuggle booze and weed into this school, Anna asked. Probably. Should have done your homework. Weed is legal everywhere now anyway. Not here, when nothing's legal here. That's the fun of it. Dean Vick shushed the kids into submission with a sharp, angry hiss. The man had a wispy salt and pepper hair that ran halfway down the back of his neck, and he possessed a near lipless mouth that went into a straight line, a strong hissing mouth. Vic was going to fit right in on that wall of musty paintings one day. He took out a stack of notes, and Anna groaned at the thickness of them. Okay, said the dean. So, welcome to the Druskin class of 2032. He had a thin, reedy voice. It was perfectly tailored for humorless bureaucracy. The boys and girls were woo! Vic raised one corner of his coin slot mouth half a centimeter. It was as mirthful as the man got. He was raised in a single-room house in Unadilla, Georgia, sent out to work in the pecan orchards at age 8, and hadn't taken a day off since. Fun was not a necessity for the man. Fun was a horrible distraction. The crowd settled. We sent you an information packet prior to you arriving here. We find that students don't typically read through the material, so I will give you a brief top line. The most important thing we have here at Druskin is Druskin itself. The grounds, the buildings, the faculty, and most important of all, you, our students. It is our haven and it is well protected by the wall system. The port wall and the red brick Harkness wall are there to safeguard you. That is why we ask that you never leave campus without prior authorization. Do not expect securing that authorization to be automatic. Circumstances must be urgent. Any student caught porting outside of campus or attempting to breach the wall will be subject to expulsion. For any field trip or sporting event that takes place off campus, you will travel by chartered bus. The entire audience groaned. Vic ignored them. He was used to students groaning. We want you to want to be here. I know that this transition won't be easy for many of you. It will take a certain period to adjust to the fact that you are no longer porting on a regular basis. Those who adjust excel. Those who do not, the dean cast an eye toward the balcony, do not. Seems uncalled for, Bamert whispered. Shut up, man, Anna said. By now you've all been outfitted with a transponder that tracks your movements in a benign fashion. It does not spy on you except to see who you are texting. There was silence. That was a light joke, Vic said. That caused Bamert to laugh and ironic. Ha ha! From the gallery, which in turn caused the whole audience to roar in genuine laughter. Vic stared darts at Bamert. But Bamert was too satisfied with the result of his joke to worry about it. Anna liked him immensely. Please do not tamper with your transponder. Anyone caught tampering will be summarily put up for disciplinary measures. And that's that. Whether you know it or not, you're about to become part of something very important. Something beyond you. When you commit yourself to a larger cause, you yourself become larger. Everything in this world is so transient now, but Druskin has remained right here the whole time in this place, and it will always remain here. It is sacred ground. One day you will have a profound appreciation of that fact. This is only a 2-year preparatory school, but these will be the most vital 2 years of your life. Years you'll recall with great clarity for the rest of your days. Bammer turned away from the stage, dipped a tiny straw into his flask, and took a sip. When Elias Truskin founded this school in 1794, he saw it as a grand experiment. He saw this school as a great living organism, a place that would not only influence those who passed through its halls, but would itself be equally influenced by those same extraordinary students. You have the opportunity to leave your mark here. And those who choose to excel will find that the marks they leave last far longer than anything they could spray onto a wall or carve into a tree. Here's an idea, said Bammer. You are now part of that great experiment. Open yourself up to Truskin, and you will find... La! There was a commotion coming from the entrance to the hall. Bammer and Anna peered over the balustrade to see if they could get a look underneath. It was the boy from Truskin Gate. He was still clutching his flowers, only now his leg was broken. He staggered into the hall, dragging the lower half of that leg behind him. It was bent in places where legs should not bend. Anna looked at Lara, who seemed just as shocked at the boy's emergence as Anna was. Dean Vick's head condensed with rage. I climbed the Harkness wall for you, the boy shouted. It was worth falling that far for you, baby. I'll always fall for you. Holy shit, that is the corniest line I've ever heard, said Anna. That's how you know he means it, Bammer said. The boy was clearly hoping Lara would respond, but the entirety of Truskin's security force had other ideas. They swallowed him up. And by the time they dispersed, the boy was gone. Not in cuffs, not dead, gone. Anna was dumbfounded. The orchestra section quivered with nervous giggles, Lara included. Wait, said Anna, how did they... Now that's a trick, isn't it, said Bammer. The media and ports say it's impossible to pour anyone but yourself. And yet, he gestured to the empty spot on the hall floor where the failed Romeo had vanished. Quite the grand experiment they have going on here. No? All right, there you go. That was one chapter from Point B. But the good news is it has other chapters as well. All right, so now the reading is out of the way. We can get to the more casual part of the affair. I'll even take my tie off and go full Night Wolf for all of you. That was actually more graceful than I had anticipated. It was very hard, by the way, for me to say orchestra. Hello, everyone. It's night, and I'm jolly. All right, so let me answer some of your questions. I'm going to answer a few things that were on Twitter first. You asked me about anything you want. Mark Zito asked, am I starting at the beginning? I did not start at the beginning. Sorry about that. Todd asks, are you going to wear the shirt? I have not worn the shirt, Todd, because I think I've told this story before. The shirt from Chops, wait, hang on, let me make sure I can see myself doing it. This shirt. That shirt, when I wore it to the taping, if you saw the episode, Chef Scott Conant made fun of the shirt, and everyone made fun of the shirt, and I was like, well, it's a nice shirt. And I got home and I told my wife, I said, everybody goofed on the shirt, sweetheart. She said, just get rid of the fucking shirt. So I did. I got rid of the shirt, and the episode didn't appear on television for a year after it was taped. You have to sign an NDA saying that you will owe the Food Network $1 million if you give away the ending. So I didn't give away the ending except to like 500 people, and then everyone made fun of the shirt, and everyone was like, "Dude, you gotta get the shirt." And I couldn't find the shirt anymore. It was a piece of shit Macy's shirt that they only made for one season. They never made it again. And I found another one on eBay. So when I go on the hike book tour, I could wear that shirt like as a gag, the way I'm wearing a robe as a gag now. And that shirt is up in my closet. I'm not going to go get it because I'm too lazy to do that right now. However, it's not the exact shirt. Like the width of the stripes is not exact. So even if I put it on, like it approximates that era of human existence, which is a vital one, obviously. But I don't have the real shirt on me. I'm sure it's somewhere. It's a priceless collector's item that is sitting wadded in a ball in the back of a closet in Ohio somewhere, belonging to some 13-year-old who never ever wants to wear it because his mom forces him to wear it to like choir practice and shit like that. All right. Sam, do you start writing a novel with a rough book length chapter format in mind, or you just write it and let the story go where it goes. Okay, Sam, I write it and let the story go where it goes, which is really stupid because Point B itself comes from the ashes of 2 other novels that I got like maybe a third of the way through before stalling, and I couldn't do anything with them. So it has components from there. It wouldn't exist without me starting those books and failing. But I'm not capable on my own of like just outlining stuff. Like I can't pull plot points out of my ass like just in a row, and have a map of the story ready to go. I know J.K. Rowling was able to do that for Harry Potter because she's a fucking genius, but I could not do it. I have to be in the copy to know where it goes next. I have to be writing it mostly because I want to write it, because the writing is the fun part. Outlining blows, and I felt that way. Like I still have like PTSD from being a student in high school and college, and being forced to write outlines and hating every second of writing outlines because I just knew I'd have to fill in the blanks, and I just didn't like it. So anyway, so I let the story go from there, because when I'm in the story, then some sort of alchemy happens where I can inhibit the characters and I can feel where they're going next. And I can't do that when I'm outside the story. I have to be in it for it to work. I can't really explain it much more than that. All I can say is it's magic. Kate walks in. Kate walks. No, that's not your name, Kate. Kate asks, given that it's the only new sports content we're likely to get for a while, how much are you looking forward to the draft tomorrow? Kate, I am looking forward to the draft in ways that are just completely unreasonable and unhealthy. And I'm already excited for it, but like, I also know tomorrow night I'm going to put it on, and the second that like Roger Goodell announces the first overall pick, like from like his war lodge, with like, you know, with every unworn team helmet and like 58 screens and like a fucking moose head hanging over a fireplace, I'll be like, okay, maybe I can just look at Twitter and see what the picks are. A writes in, I know this is a cliche question, but do you feel like Nearly Dying has changed how you write novels? The answer to that, A, is no. Dying would have changed how I wrote them, but Nearly Dying had not. The only thing I will say is that Nearly Dying gave me a perspective on death that I did not have, and that tends to happen when you die. And I am going to write about that. However, I didn't write about it in this book because I don't mean to give too much away, but I will be writing about that in a subsequent book, and you can probably guess what that book would be about. Ray writes in, how far can you punt a football? Oh, it's racism, the old Deadspin commenter. I've answered this question for Ray, and my estimate was 30 yards, and I think that's probably arrogant on my part. Aaron writes in, have you ever played Portal? No, Aaron, I have not. Jaw Max writes in, do you want to know about typos? Yes, but send them to me in an email. Don't tell them about me right now, because this is my time. All right, that's all the Twitter questions. Now let's go to the live chat stream. I have half an hour, but if you will excuse me for just a moment, I'm going to get more water. Hang on. Hey, look at that. I'm back. Hi. Okay. Okay, so let's see here. I'll start. Let me see if I can start at the top. I can do this. Thad writes in, pretty sure the still photo of Drew's bugged out eyes is going to be visiting me in my nightmare soon. I'm sorry about that, Thad. I do apologize. Joe Ryan writes in, is it the Night Wolf or just Night Wolf? That is the nickname I've given myself when I am having executive road time. And it is just Night Wolf, not the Night Wolf. When Matt Reeves directs the film of it, he might change the title to The Night Wolf, in which I fight the Night Owl. But for now, it's just Night Wolf. Let's see here. Timothy Hoy writes, how long does it take a grown man to get a robe on? That's because I was late to my own online reading. I was late to my own reading, and I was actually thinking about this. I was like, oh, it could be like a rock concert. I could be fashionably late, and like that would just build the anticipation for me coming out. A, I'm not famous enough to do that, and B, I'm doing A and B, but I'm numbering 1 and 2 in my head. But also, you're at home, so if you're stuck waiting for something online, you have 50 other tabs open, so you can just go over to porn for a few seconds while I'm doing all of this. So I didn't mean to make any of you wait, and I do apologize for that. All right, let's see here. Steven writes in, is that a post-mortal poster? Yes, it is. And it's the only, I thought I'd be up my own ass if I had like my own like memorabilia around on all that stuff. However, the post-mortal, which I wrote the first draft of it 11 years ago when I was out of work. And it was passed on by 18 editors until one who was a Deadspin fan finally bought it for $25,000 and published it as a paperback. And I never thought anything would come of it after that. I was just happy that it got published. And then it ended up getting picked up by a lot of schools and being taught in schools. And one of them was the University of South Carolina. And I was hired for the first time to speak to their freshman class. It was the first time I've ever been hired to do anything like this in 2013. And I went to Dulles Airport. It was a flight from DC to Columbia, South Carolina. And the flight was canceled. It was the only flight that day. And I called the University of South Carolina and I said, my flight's been canceled. Can we postpone this a day? And they said, no, Drew, you have to come down. I said, well, do I still get paid if I don't? And they're like, no, you have to come here if you want us to pay you. So I said, all right, fine. I drove 10 hours, rented a car at Dulles Airport, drove 10 fucking hours to Columbia, South Carolina. I thought I was hallucinating by the end. Driving past south of the border at the North Carolina, South Carolina border did not help matters in that regard. Anyway, and then they brought me, drove all the way, and then they brought me into the school's basketball auditorium, and it was half full of freshmen, and I shit my pants. There were freshmen up to the top seats. Now, that wasn't because they wanted to see me, it's because they were forced to be there. However, it was one of the coolest experiences of my life, and part of that was that a student at the time named Jessica Langs, a freshman, designed a special cover for the book, and then autographed it for me. And it was so nice that I decided to hang it up. Before this, there used to be kid stuff all over here, and then I said to my wife, "Hey, maybe I should have more of an adult office these days, and have like proper, like all 3 things around." And that was all she needed to hear from me. I was like, I'm thinking about the idea. The next day, she had cleared all the shit out, and so I was able to get that framed. So I thank Jessica, and I'm very grateful to Jessica all the time. But no, this sounds like a bad episode of MTV Cribs. So let me see here. RK writes in, I don't have a Kindle because I'm a slovenly caveman. Will this spoil me? No, RK. My hope is that the paperback will be available starting tomorrow. It was going to be available today, except Amazon's publishing software is very, very, very picky, much pickier than you would think about what you can submit as a cover, and not just in terms of like content. They were fine with the cover, which is the cover I've been pimping out all day like a madman. But like in terms of specs, in terms of measurements of like, X copy can't impinge on the barcode too much. Like it's not that it can't even be overlapped with the barcode, of course, but it can't even come. There's like it has to socially distance with the barcode. So I had to resubmit over and over and over. It takes 24 hours to do it. The other thing you need to know is that the paperback will be more expensive than the ebook, and the ebook, even though it will be cheaper, the ebook is $7.99 because the maximum most could charge is $9.99. That seemed really inappropriate to do right now when everyone is not doing well. But the paperback is going to cost $13.99 because otherwise there was literally no way to make money off of it. Like because they calculate the margins for you. The Amazon Death Star computer says, well, actually, if you sell it for $11, you're going to owe us 52 cents for every copy. So anyway, so if you want a hard copy, there will be a hard copy, but it will cost more than the ebook will, and I can't do anything about that. But if I could, I would. Also, like I said before, I'm trying to sell at places other than Amazon. So if you are a commie like me and you're like, well, Amazon's evil, and I'd rather buy it from, Sloppy Joe's Book Emporium online, I'm trying to make it so that that's possible. What's going to end up happening is that you're going to end up either buying it from Barnes and Noble or Apple. So like, I live in a world now where Barnes and Noble is like the mom and pop store, which, 15 years ago, every actual mom and pop store was like, these Barnes and Noble people are going to fuck us. But it turned out that an even bigger company came to fuck them all. Okay, so I'm sorry for the ums. I will not say that again. Does anyone have any more questions? Fergberg79 asks, why isn't he wearing a robe? I'm wearing the robe. There's the robe. Flannels and Coffee asks, what chapter did I just read? Okay, the chapters are not numbered. Every chapter in Point B is just has a date line on it. I think there are roughly 70 chapters. The paperback edition of the book is 444 pages. It's 140,000 words or 135,000 words. And just so you have an idea of the arbitrary nature of book length, when I changed spacing and font sizes and stuff, at one point the book ran 900 pages, which is not terribly appealing. And also it looked padded like it was a fucking term paper. So the font's a bit more condensed. So it's right in the spot where it's not a slight novel. It's like 250 pages or whatever, but it's not a doorstop. So it's in that nice happy medium for you. And this was toward the front of the novel. All right, so let's see here. Charlie Connolly writes in, can I please narrate the audiobook? I am looking also into self-producing an audiobook, although that's actually pretty expensive. And there's a process where they let you actually audition for talent. And so I've had the great thrill of being able to like cast for it, even though I don't know if I'll actually be able to afford to put out an audiobook. Or hopefully, frankly, if enough of you buy it, perhaps an audio place like Audible would want to make a deal for it on the side, and they would produce it on their own. I do know that I am not the person to narrate the audiobook. It was clear to me from the auditions that it would need a female narrator, and I am not a female. So it was much better with women reading it than with me. All right, Michael DeRocher writes in, from listening to the first chapter, Anna appears to be a protagonist. How do you write from the female point of view? I think you always think about it was in the trailer for the old Nicholson movie, As Good as It Gets, and he was a writer and a fawning reader who was a woman, of course, asked him how he writes women so well. And he said, I think of a man, then I take away reason and accountability, which is a shitty joke. So I didn't think of it in that way. Instead, I just drew upon the experiences with all the women that I had known over 40 years, all the girls I had met. There are women in this house, and I know them very well, and they know me. And so I did my best to think about things from their perspective, but also we're all human, and it's a love story, and love is love. So honestly, it was just like, what are the basic human parts of this character? Because we're all human. And, how do I make her inherently female from there? And it became clear to me that I had at least somewhat succeeded on those terms, because there was a point where someone had suggested to me that Anna be changed into a boy character. And I looked at her on the page, and there was no way to do it. Just the way I saw her in her head and the way I knew her, it was not going to be possible to change her character without changing her and changing who it was. Would have been a completely different person. So I knew that the DNA of the character on the page was inherently female, and hopefully that comes through. Hopefully I did a good enough job. However, you guys will be the ultimate arbiters of that, and whatever you judge will probably be more accurate than my own self-analysis. And I'll have to go from there and get fucking better at it, because that's all I can do. Rich writes in, can I please step back 2 paces? What about this, Rich? Does that look good? How's that? Is that James writes in, how's my health? My health is great. Matt Ufford writes in, congrats, you're the first person to wear a tie in the last month. Ufford is correct. It is the first, it's the first time I've worn a tie in like 8 months. Let's see. I apologize. Mo writes in, what did I think of AEW wrestling? I only watched it for like 5 or 10 minutes because I was too busy being stoned and listening to music. And I was just like, without the crowd, I felt like, and I feel like all sports are heavily dependent upon crowds, not because I believe the legendary fans of the Boston Celtics will carry their team to victory or any of that shit. But I like I just like the ambiance of the crowd. Like I even like when I'll watch some games on mute because the announcers are annoying. Like if Bill Moss was announcing a game or something like that. But always I would end up caving and putting it back on because I wanted to hear the crowd. And hearing the crowd was worth whatever bullshit Troy Aikman says in the background. Okay, Flannels and Coffee writes in, who is my dream actor for Ben from The Hike to play in a movie? I tweeted out once when I was feeling good about myself, and I said it was written with Adam Scott in mind. Adam Scott was Ben. His wife was, and I forget her name. She was, I believe, Teresa from the OC. It was not Olivia Wilde. It was not Misha Barton. It was the other one, and I forget her name. And then Catherine Hahn was for Mona. Jack Nicholson was the producer, and Cisco was Oscar Isaac. It was Oscar Isaac. Okay. Tom, did you second guess? Oh, wait. Oh, Richard writes in, I'm aware of your health scare and your history. May I ask what remains on the side of your skull? Look at this. Okay. I'm going to show you something. You ready? All right, here we go. What I did? Nah, I'm just kidding. This is a sound processor for a cochlear implant. It has a magnet on the inside, and then it sticks to my head. And there's an electrode in my head that connects directly to the cochlear nerve because this ear was destroyed in my fall and rendered me half deaf. And the processor is a microphone that takes in sound on this side of my head, send it directly to the nerve, and then send it to my brain so that I can hear on this side of my head. It brings back balance and brings back audio. It's not perfect. It'll never be perfect. But again, I'll tell you more about that in the future. Fergberg writes in, will there be a movie adaptation for The Hike? Not that I know of yet, because the TV and movie option lapsed. There was a different option picked up for it relatively recently, or maybe picked up relatively recently for it in another form, which I can't really talk about, oddly. But it was picked up for TV by a company at the time called I Am Global, a project spearheaded by David Goyer, who helped to write The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. I believe both of those. And I wrote the pilot, and I wrote treatment for the first season, and it was pitched to studios, but they ultimately all passed. One of them, I believe, said it was too weird. So I actually kind of liked that. One publisher that rejected Point B said it wasn't weird enough. So I have to find the right balance between being extremely fucked up and being a little not quite fucked up enough. Eric writes in, do I have a standing desk or a fancy chair? Okay, Eric, I have a chair, but it's not like, it's one of the fake Aeron chairs. So it's supposed to, replicate that sort of basket chair that all the executives have in the corner office that always break after 4 hours of use. That chair was $100, and I never used it. I used to use it all the time. Now the kids use it, and the kids use it for e-school, but the kids also use it to spin around on, because that's what kids do with chairs. Timothy writes in, how's homeschooling going? Over here, I cannot believe no one has gotten hurt. It's going actually pretty well. I expected, because my kids started e-schooling a bit after other kids had. Excuse me, I'm going to take the robe off. I am wearing clothing under the robe. My kids started e-schooling sort of after after their cousins had started, and they already knew that it was going to be, there were going to be shitty tech problems, and it was going to be an adjustment on the first day. But they more or less adjusted after the week and gotten past the tech problems. And I'm someone, they're like me. They learned from me in this regard, where if they have tech problems, they just bitch endlessly, even if it's about school. And then I bitch because I want us to fix the tech problems. And then when I can't fix them, I really bitch because I just want it solved and I don't want to deal with it ever fucking again. But since then, they've gotten the hang of it, and they're computer literate. I'm lucky in the regard that my kids, because I have friends who have younger children, all my kids are 8 and above, and so they're relatively self-reliant. They can open up laptops, they can get online, they know how to do all that stuff most of the time, and then they can do all this shit on their own. I know people who have babies at home, 2-year-olds, 4-year-olds. That's like its a whole other thing, and I don't know if I'd be standing here right now. I would not be standing here right now if there were like 3-year-olds running around beating the shit out of each other. Kyle writes in, have you thought about having an unnamed temporary sports blog where the staff lets chat live stream? Yeah, that's a good idea. I would do that. Yeah, we did a live, we might have did a live chat last time we did it. I will ask the staff because we're on that site through Friday, I believe. Kylie writes in, how many book sales would you trade to watch an NBA game tonight? We'll say a quality game, Clippers versus Raptors. Kylie, as much as I miss sports, I don't know. I'd pay $20 for that because, first of all, if I know it's going away again right after that, it doesn't mean anything. It's just an exhibition. It's just bullshit. Like I really do miss sports, and I'm filling the gap with men as best I can. I won the Super Bowl with the Vikings yesterday. Thank you very much. It was on rookie mode. Very, very happy for Kirk Cousins to finally get a championship, the only championship he'll ever win. But I don't know. I don't know that watching a shitty NBA game would fill the void. I also know that watching the Jordan doc would not do that either. Let's see. Andrew writes in, after doing the name of the year with Roth, you guys thinking about doing a new version of the Deadcast through Patreon or anything? We are working on a podcast to bring back things that have been complicated by reasons that are extremely obvious to everybody right now because of COVID and all that shit. But we are working on it, and we are going to bring it back at some point. We're figuring it out. All right. Chris Brown writes in, who is the dark horse name of the year candidate this year? I don't want to give it away. I have the bracket on me. Well, I can give it away. Roth and I liked Jimadiah Scrooge the best, but I would not sleep on old Jimbertson Vapor, nor would I sleep on the immortal Hannah Moody Goo. Andrew writes in, who had the idea to start? Oh wait, I actually can't answer that question. Let's see here. Will Marshall writes in, will my kids roll into the room like the South Korean family live on the BBC? And the answer is no, because one of them is asleep, the other one is in the shower, and the other one is on TikTok for her 7th hour of the day. The other day she came in and she was so proud of herself. She's like, I watched the whole Netflix season of Outer Banks. And I was like, when? And she's like, today. And I was like, that's awful. That's really shitty of me that I let you do that. And she was like, what? Who cares? And I'm totally like, I remember being a kid, and I remember being in the TV room with the shades drawn like in May, and my mom coming in and doing the whole parent thing where it's like, it's beautiful outside. And I was like, nah, go away. Like she'll crack open the blinds and I'm like a vampire. And so, like it was only inevitable that it would come back to bite me in the ass, and I would have the exact same dynamic with my own children. Steve writes in, what are the odds Mike Zimmer spills his dip spit cup all over his laptop and the Vikings again failed to pick on time? The last time they failed to pick on time, they picked Kevin Williams. So if they blow it again, I don't have a problem with that. But no, I think even though there will be tech problems tomorrow night and through the weekend, I don't think any of the teams will fail to pick on time. And I think, in fact, if they do, I think the NFL will cover it up. Ricky writes in, is anything going in the smoker? No, I put chicken on the smoker the other day. I put 4 chicken quarters on the smoker and burnt them to a fucking cinder. Like I went down, I was like, oh, the fire's good now. And I went down and I put the chicken on. And then when I went to put it back up, like 15 minutes later, there was a fucking grease fire in the goddamn egg, and it towered up. And my wife was like, oh! And I was like, it's okay, I got it. That's always like a dad move, where like something explodes in the house. I'm like, it's fine, it's all right, it's okay, it'll be all right. Unless someone else explodes something, then I'm completely different. But if I'm responsible for it, I'm like, this is nothing. It's fine. Brian writes in, do I have any good smoke boy cooks happening during the pandemic? No, that was not, like I said, I ruined the chicken. The things I have made that have been good during the pandemic were sticky toffee pudding. And I tweeted that recipe out. It's from Food and Wine. I didn't come up with the recipe. And then I did the homemade bread baking thing, which I liked a lot because, you know, you're like, oh, it's warm and fresh. And then a day later, it's harder than fucking granite. And you're like, well, I'm going to have to make more fresh bread to make up for this other fresh bread that has no preservatives in it and therefore can't last longer than 5 minutes out in the open without teeming with maggots. And then another thing I cooked, we had salmon tonight. It was lovely, but that doesn't count. I don't know. Made brownies. That was pretty good. Let's see. Howard is asking, what's the better Chevy Chase film, Fletch or Spies Like Us? It's Fletch, and everybody knows that. But given that I grew up in that era, like if you grew up in the 80s, you grew up in the 90s, or, you probably even now, there are movies you saw 5,000 times that you're not even quite sure why you saw them 5,000 times. It's just something you did to pass the time. There's no internet thing. And Spies Like Us, I saw 5,000 times. So I know the entire screenplay back and forth. And it's a good movie. Like, especially the part where they have to go through training with Bernie Casey is like great. So I have a soft spot in my heart for Spies Like Us, but I think Fletch is the better movie. All right. Neil O'Donnell writes in, thank you, Neil. Sativa or Indica? Sativa. I'm a Sativa man all the way. Spiral Bears writes in, assuming there's an NFL season next year, will you be doing the Jamboree? And the answer to that is yes. I will do the Jamboree. Probably. I just contradicted myself. I will probably do the Jamboree regardless of whether or not there's an NFL season. But the important thing you need to know is that there will be Why Your Team Sucks this year, regardless of whether or not there's a season. Because, first of all, every team changed all their players just because they were bored or because they knew the season was a wash and they don't want to admit it publicly. So I'm going to go ahead and do that because by the time next August rolls around, even if no football has been played, weird shit will have happened that will require a fresh round of roasting. So I think it'll be fine if we do it that way. Andrew writes in, when it all came crashing down at Deadspin, what was the most surprising thing of all? That it happened so fast, Andrew. We all kind of expected something that our management was poor and didn't support us, and that things were probably going to fall apart. And I certainly knew it because and I wrote about this. I was like, I had a handshake deal in place to leave Deadspin before I quit Deadspin. I had made a handshake deal with Sports Illustrated in July of 2019 to go, and all they needed was to supply me with the paperwork, and I was going to sign it. And months and months went past, and they never gave me the paperwork. And by the time I asked, what's going on? Where's this paperwork? They had laid off like 1 million people, and it was already clear that they were going to gut the whole place. And that offer, the formal offer, never came. And so by that time, because it was a nice offer, I was like, well, I could make more money. Clearly, I'm a desired commodity. And I went asking around for work elsewhere to see if I could get some more money, but still be able to do all the shit I did at Deadspin. And nobody had any money to give me. And and nobody had the freedom to let me talk about things that I can talk about at Deadspin, that we could talk about at Deadspin. And so the walls are sort of closing in because, I had a tempting offer to leave, and I wanted to see if I could match that somehow. And at the same time, I knew that Deadspin was heading in a bad place, particularly after Megan was compelled to quit and left without any support from management. It was clear that things were going really shitty. And then the Barry thing happened. They fired Barry, and then everyone else started quitting. And when Tom Lay quit, or told us he was going to quit that morning, I knew that I couldn't stay, even though obviously I have health issues, and even though I have children, it was just obvious that none of us could stay. And unfortunately, I wish things would get better there. I really do mean that, because I don't want the sites to be bad. I miss Deadspin terribly, and I wish it was what it was, but it can't be, and I've accepted that. But I certainly don't. When they rebooted it, I don't pay much attention to it. But it's always better if sites are good than if they're bad. If they're just boilerplate bullshit, then it's just another thing to ignore. Okay. Alice in Chains or Soundgarden from Howard. Alice in Chains. Kevin writes in, which of my illegitimate love children do I have more affection for, Joe Burrow or Sam Donald? Okay, right now, Kevin, it's Joe Burrow. He's my real son, unless he fails. If he fails, and then Sam Darnold comes back and plays well, Sam Darnold is my new son. But if Sam Darnold keeps being shitty, and he's going to keep being shitty because Adam Gase is his coach, I will remain estranged from him. And Joe Burrow will remain the flag bearer of the Magary Burrow name, the Maguro name. Gorast writes in, based off the experience so far, if you had the option to pick between self-publishing or going through a traditional publisher, would you self-publish again or take a publisher's deal? Okay, so if money is not an issue, the answer is self-publishing, because first of all, you have control over the whole process. You actually have control also when you go with a publishing house, because you're still the author of the book. Publishing still is good in that way, where the people who create the work still own it. That has always been a problem in the music business. That is obviously a very complicated problem in TV and film. But authors, by standard, always own their work, and therefore they have more control over their work, and that's very cool. But with Point B, I was able to keep the book the way I wanted it and not make any drastic changes to the storyline that I thought would have been bad for the storyline, simply so that a publisher could put it in position to sell. Because publishers, they want the book to be good, of course, but they want to know that they can say, this book is for X, and X person, or for X sales outlet, for X store, and all that. And they'll change books accordingly. But the other thing is the process is very slow. As long as it took me to finally get this out, if a publisher had bought it last year in May, it still wouldn't have come out until well after this date right now, when I had published it myself. Also, I had control over the cover, and a gentleman named Dennis Padua did an awesome cover design, and we could make it exactly the way we wanted it. And that is not the way publishing houses work. And publishing houses, they give you the cover and they say, how do you like it? And I'm like, well, this and that and this and that. And they're like, well, our sales team likes it, so that's the cover. And you're like, oh, all right, okay. So it is going to be just a donkey shitting on its balls. Okay, all right. So I would self-publish again if I could. And also, I don't know what's going to happen to the publishing industry after this. So I can't be certain. And I don't know what's going to happen with self-publishing after this, because as evil as Amazon is, they are actually very fair in terms of how they treat authors. So like if you do an ebook, you get 70% of all the royalties, and they get 30%. And there are obvious reasons around that. Also, the cost of printing a paperback is much lower, and that is because Amazon is so dominant, they can give you a fair price on it. So in some ways, it's fair to authors, but almost certainly at the expense of someone besides Amazon. But I don't know what's going to happen with it next. I just know that I want to keep writing, and I want to be able to support my family by doing it. And of course, the best way to do it is by having you buy the book. But if you don't want to buy the book, if you were not sufficiently charmed by the night wheels tonight, then I can't stop you from doing it. But that's also shitty salesmanship, and I'm the only salesman I got for the book. So buy the fucking thing. All right. Gregory writes in, so for something like spicy tuna or salmon sushi, is the mayo as an ingredient okay or still pass? I've eaten it before, and it's like okay, but I know it's there, and it sort of bothers me. So I'm not like super happy about it. It's one of the few times where I can eat mayo and not be completely disgusted by it. Like if it's in a sandwich, forget it. The sandwich, that's not going to happen. And people are always like, well, they bake it in the cake at Portillo's, bro. I don't give a shit about that. It's a cake. It tastes like a cake. It's not. They're not putting a layer of mayo frosting on top of the fucking cake. It's an ingredient, like an egg. Like I don't eat raw flour, but raw flour isn't a cake. Yeah, it doesn't disgust me, so that's fine. Andrew writes in, which of my book covers do I not like? I thought the cover of Men with Balls, even though I should like it because it's a pair of swinging balls, and we're on the same wavelength as to what the cover ought to be. I was like, Men with Balls, it should have two balls on it, and it should look like a scrotum. That's exactly how I said it. Like the font was kind of stupid and whatever. So I didn't like it like that. And the book itself is obviously not aged terribly well. But there was nothing I could do about it. But also, it was my first book, so I'm not gonna bitch that someone let me publish a book of dick jokes. Oh, Kelsey writes in, do I care to comment on the Mark Warner tuna melt? No, my mom texted me that, but I didn't watch it because he doused a tuna melt in mayonnaise. Just, I don't know why politicians are so shitty with food. Like this is not, and this goes across the aisle. This is a both sides thing, a genuine both sides thing. They all have shitty taste in food. I think the only person who had like good taste in food was like Mayor Pete, and that's terrible on its own merits. So let me. I'm gonna wrap up here, I think, but I'm gonna just check one more time on the Twitter thing. I just called it the Twitter. Yeah, no, that's it. That is it for all the questions, and that puts us in exactly an hour. And so, I just want to say thank all of you so much for coming tonight. I hope you had a nice time. I hope you enjoy the book. Tell your friends about it. Tell very important, famous people who could get sold all about it. Tell them it's more important that they read it than they read the Holy Bible. And also, please stay safe. Wash your hands. Stay home if you can. If you have to go out, wear the mask. Do your diligence. Keep your distance away from people. And if you do that, thank you for doing that. All right. We'll see you. Bye.